This on? It's on. Okay. You speak, you introduce yourself, you speak for up to 2 minutes. Okay.
There is an extraordinary council meeting called to offer condolence on behalf of the borough on the death of our late Sovereign Queen Elizabeth. On this very special and sad evening, I'm pleased and proud to welcome the Deputy Lieutenant, representative of the many of the faiths practiced across the borough, as well as representatives speaking for the young people of the borough. Welcome to all members of the council, other speakers and guests present, as well as members of the public who may be watching online. Tonight, meeting will be broadcast live and recording retained on the council YouTube site. Therefore, I will presume everyone consent to this happening. If you have not any consent to this, then you should leave the meeting. There is a number of councillors who will be joining us remotely tonight by Zoom. These members will not be counted as formally be in. Attendance the meeting for the purpose of the Section 85 of the Local Government Act 1972. However, their virtual attendance will be recorded in the minutes under item 1. The member in attendance virtually will be able to speak at the meeting, but won't be able to take part in any votes. Are there any apologies for the absence?
Councillors Busuttil, Manro, Kamaljeet Sahota, Summers and Hirsch have given apologies, and Councillor Driscoll for lateness. Oh, he's here, sorry.
Councillor Kate Crawford for lateness, please. Thank you.
Are there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Oh, she done it already. Can the clerk read out the names of those members who are in attendance virtually?
Councillors Kohli, Dinza, Mohan, Seema Kumar, Praveen Anand, I think that's it. Thanks. Councillor Iqbal, sorry. Councillor Mohammed, thank you.
Item second, declaration of the interest. Are there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Anyone? No. Thank you. Item 3.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move a procedural motion to suspend Rule 14.5 relating to length of speech, particularly to allow the leaders of the 3 main parties to speak for 4 minutes and all of the contributions for 2 minutes.
I second that.
I support that.
So, or agree? Thank you. I call on Councillors Mason to move the motion for the debate for only 4 minutes. Mr. Peter Mason.
Madam Mayor, we are summoned to mark the death of our sovereign lady, the late Queen Elizabeth II. And over the course of tonight's special meeting, faith leaders, young people, as well as the civic leadership of this borough, will offer words of condolence and of allegiance to His Majesty, King Charles III. Grief can be inexplicable. It is, as Her late Majesty once wrote, the price that we pay for love. It is for love lost, which will befall us all, for ourselves and our loved ones. Experienced with the visceral pain and recent experience of a pandemic that has focused the minds of our collective mortality and the precariousness of the human condition. Just as Her Majesty represented for so many the hopeful aspiration that we would meet again then, it goes a long way to explain the remarkable sight of residents from Northolt to Acton and beyond, lining the journey of Her late Majesty with honour and dignity as she made her final return to London. We grieve her loss, we grieve for her family, and perhaps we also grieve for a connection to our collective past. The embodiment of a collective memory, herself a veteran of a world war, whose 70-year reign as sovereign saw us through every major affair of state throughout her long life. It is perhaps easiest to remember the events of her later life, of an elder stateswoman, of experience and of longevity, providing a point of constant to the fragility of passing time and to the wistfulness of our nation's past. But whilst Her Majesty was our longest serving monarch, she was also amongst our youngest, and it's first of a modern media age, a thoroughly modern monarch, during such monumental strides in modern liberties, in modern freedoms, and in modern culture. She remarked in her 1957 Christmas message, the first to be televised, that it is impossible for some of you to see Her Majesty today as it is just another example of the speed at which things are changing all around us. Because of these changes, I'm not surprised that many people feel lost and unable to decide what to hold on to and what to discard, how to take advantage of the new life without losing the best of the old. In retrospect, and as she was so cleverly able to convey with the subtlety without so much as ever uttering a political statement, the blue and yellow flowers in solidarity with Ukraine, it's clear to see now that Her Majesty then perhaps wasn't confronting just the advent of a new technology, but counselling a nation to embrace the future, to come to terms with the end of empire and the start of a multicultural and multi-faith Britain, and so ushering in a confident new Britannia, no longer ruling the waves, but instead an open and welcoming land of new hope and of different glory for so many and of new traditions. It would have been impossible to envisage at Queen Victoria's state funeral that the somberness of silence for the loss of life would give way instead to the sound of applause of a life loved and well lived. It would have been difficult to envisage at the death of King George VI, the last emperor of India, that his beloved daughter would be blessed with garlands of flowers to the sounds of puja, salat, and of ardas in mandirs, mosques, and gurdwaras in this rich tapestry of our country, the United Kingdom, as well as from the realms and the territories in the Commonwealth. In death, as in her life, may her late Majesty's memory be a blessing. May that spirit of community, of togetherness, and of love for country and each other that she was so capable of securing in us be the blessing we take with us from this period of national
Join the
mourning
meeting.
to beyond. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Milton, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to first of all thank the mayoral team and the Democratic Services team and the Deputy Lieutenant for all of their many events over the past 10 or 11 days that they've either organised or helped at. I think that's turned a sad event into one where people can at least give their views and express their opinions and their grief in those 10 days. Whether you're a monarchist or not, the residents of Ealing across the whole Commonwealth had a very, very positive view of the late Queen. The Jubilee parties only a few months ago showed this clearly when many parties across the borough took place and across London and the UK. Two examples come to me when I sort of try and remember the abilities that the Queen had and the characteristics that she showed. The first one, although a sad event totally, it's one where she showed great leadership, and that was Grenfell. We saw the fires and we hoped many people would not perish, and we saw unfold a massive disaster very close to Ealing, and our own staff went to help there. But it was the Queen that showed the leadership to visit the scene, to speak to the relatives of those who died, as well as others who were searching for answers there. For her to do that when there was a tension growing showed a great compassion as well. Rather than staying away, this is a moment where actually it was crucial that she did visit the scene and actually speak to those residents who all wanted answers giving. There was a second and also an area in Northern Ireland where the Troubles took place following the Good Friday Agreement in 1998. That prompted some ceasing of some of the violence there. But we saw in 2012, and I remember watching this on TV, and this is a moment that I would never have expected, when the Queen shook hands with the former IRA commander, Martin McGuinness, both privately and then publicly. That wouldn't normally be something to be expected. And I think to be willing to face a person in that situation showed many of us actually that she's not just calm, but she's actually incredibly brave to have done that. That was a risky activity to be involved in. And she was someone who showed, again, great leadership. She showed there is a great judgment to know when to intercede and get involved in an activities. And I think those two moments stand out for me looking on over the past number of decades. I think overall, Councillor Mason has summarised what I would say is a strong work ethic over 70 years. We look at the mayors of Ealing over the past couple of decades as councillors, and all of those mayors work really hard, but she's done that for 70 years, which is a terrific amount of energy that she's put into that role. And I think when she made visits to Ealing, she's really showed that she's a person who wants to be seen and understood, and she's visited Ealing a number of times. So in summary, I think Elizabeth had a strong work ethic. She had a great leadership and was courageous and compassionate. To have one person who can sum up all of those abilities is very rare indeed. And I believe she will be greatly missed. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And of course, tonight we offer our love and our condolences to the royal family at this time of mourning for the great Queen Elizabeth II. And I wanted to echo Councillor Malcolm's words. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for how you've led this period, and you've led it so positively as well. with all the team here, which is it's very important to see how much this reign achieved. We look on. Well, what I wanted to say also that I'm very glad that the royal family now have the chance to grieve privately and come to terms over the great changes that are inevitably coming. We look on and we contemplate a new chapter in the constitutional monarchy of the United Kingdom. And there are two great myths about constitutional monarchy. The first, of course, is that it's a life of privilege handed down through the generations. Yes, a family that lives in stately homes and enjoys expensive pastimes like flat racing and polo. But behind that, of course, is a life of the most extraordinary sacrifice. And I'm not talking about leaky pipes, leaky pens, fires or ghosts. No, I'm talking about a total lack of privacy, which puts a strain on everything from health to married life to basic judgment. As a working royal, you get thousands of requests. You're on royal duty 10, 12, 14, 15 hours in a day, shaking hands constantly having to meet the elevated expectation of a royal personage. It is a difficult life with the fulfillment of duty its only reward. The other myth is that the constitutional monarchy in Britain is somehow in the nation's DNA. You look back to 1837 and you can see William IV clinging to life until the young Victoria came of age. He knew she was the only one who would lead the nation through the coming economic and social upheavals of the 19th century. The abdication crisis, 1936, threatened the monarchy, as we'll find out in just 8 years' time when the records are released. The public wasn't ready to accept that the king should freely choose as his wife a woman who was already twice divorced. In more recent times, there were plenty of people who felt a frisson of constitutional uncertainty when the Supreme Court ruled that a prime minister had unlawfully asked the Queen to sign an order to prorogue Parliament. Constitutional monarchy is a two-way street which requires active effort on both sides. Now, the new king clearly believes in its value, and I believe he'll do everything he can to make it work. But what about us, the public, as represented by the body politic? Will we help this process, perhaps giving the king space to show his human side, perhaps asking for one or two fewer miracles? If we do, we'll preserve this useful rhythm, this incredible heritage that our late Queen has given us, making sure that whoever is in charge politically always has to look up to someone. And then the reign of Charles III can be as great as his mother's, part of a whole new regeneration of British life. We don't know whether this will happen, and that's why we say, in the subjunctive mood of hope, God save the king. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I call on the faith leaders. First, Loveleen Kaur, please. Loveleen, you have 2 minutes, please.
Thank you. My name is Navleen Kaur. I'm from the Central Gurdwara. I represent the Sikh community in West London. I'm also a Sikh chaplain in education. And I really am very grateful to be in your presence. And I'd like to offer my sincere gratitude really for the longest reigning Queen, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth. This 70 years of inspiration. I know as long as I've been alive, all I've seen is amazing things. My faith teaches me about devotional service, humility, gratitude, loving people for who they are and not expecting them to change or become something they're not. And any experience I ever had, and I was lucky enough to meet her in my lifetime, I was very young in Windsor Castle, and I sang for a sustainable development project. And she came up to me, and I'll never forget the moment when she looked in my eyes and said, "Keep your faith and keep alive." So somehow I feel that that beautiful statement that she inspired me to live that legacy. And it's not easy being a faith leader and a woman, but when she did it and she had done it and she's done it for so many, I could feel that wow, this is something I can live and help the future generations. So with all my heart, I would like to say to all of you, let's live that legacy. Let's give more and more women, more men and women joining together to live in humility, to live in grace, be grateful for everything that we have, and look with an open heart to support those who don't have what they need and be there for them. Let's give them our hand, just like she gave us both her hands, her love, her family, everything. She gave it all, and no holding back. So together, let's not hold back and serve each other and our communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Father David Nino, please.
Good evening. My name is Reverend David Nino. I'm the Vicar of St. Peter's in Mount Park Road, but I also wear a second hat as Area Dean of the Anglican Churches through the Borough of Ealing. So I come to speak on their behalf. But I also bring greetings from Bishop Lusa Nsenga Ngoy, who's the Area Bishop of Willesden, who has pastoral care of the Anglicans throughout our borough. We've heard many humbling and moving words about Her Majesty this week. It's difficult to add to them without sounding somewhat cliched. But then seeing the public response, hearing the very personal words as we have mourned, we are reminded of a magnificent service to this nation and a love for the people it would be very difficult to replicate. Her reign, for me at least, is summed up in one word. And that word we've also heard a lot of. It is service. Often used to describe her reign, this service was a dialogue with the people of this nation. She expressed her love, which was rooted in her faith and her understanding of her role as our Queen. In this service, where nothing was too much to ask, and the only stricture came upon the hours of the day that were available to her, and the space left in her diary around those duties she had to perform. We will miss her greatly, and for her generosity, she will never be forgotten. His Majesty King Charles has rather large shoes to fill. We may wish to say he has had much preparation, but no preparation can fully make one ready for the reality of kingship. My prayer for him is wisdom, time, and strength as he prepares to take on this mantle of kingship. May he be guided by God and be able to fulfill his role well. God save the King.
Thank you. Rachel Manning, please.
Good evening. I am Reverend Rachel Bending. I am the Superintendent Minister of the Methodist Circuit within the Borough of Ealing. So I bring you greetings from those churches and also from our London district who met on Saturday. In our service giving thanks for Her Majesty's life this Sunday, we reflected on a passage from the book of Isaiah in the Hebrew scripture, where a king dies and the prophet feels that the earth is shaken. In years gone past, I have preached that, of course, that isn't how it would feel today. That in those days, monarchs were a matter of life and death. And that is not for us. How wrong I was. Over this last week, as I've walked through crowds laying flowers or stood at the sides of our major arteries going in and out of the city and watched people mourning, I realise that we too feel that sense of shaking at Queen Elizabeth's death. Her constancy, her dedication, her deep faith and sense of vocation to the task to which she was called led her to have a deep interest in each person before her and each matter that came into her notice. And that's meant that her death has caused that same sense that nothing can be the same. But she said, each day is a new beginning. I know that the only way to live my life is to try to do what is right and to take the long view, to give my best in all that the day brings, and to put my trust in God. And so I stand with each person gathered here, I guess, to send my condolences on her death to those who knew her and loved her best, and to pray for our new King, that he may be able to follow in her example, in taking each new day as a new beginning, in doing what is right, in taking the long view, and in doing his best. May God bless him as he does so, and us as his subjects. Thank you.
Thank you. Father Ambrose.
Good evening. I'm Father Ambrose McCambridge, the parish priest of St. Benedict's Catholic Church, Ealing Abbey. And I'm here on behalf of the Catholic community of Ealing Abbey and also representing Abba Dominic of the monastic community at Ealing Abbey. First of all, to offer the condolences of the Catholic community in Ealing to His Royal Highness, His Majesty the King, King Charles, and to the royal family. And in our tradition, as is always the way, on news of somebody's death, we on Friday morning, together with our primary Catholic schools, St. Gregory's offered the 9 a.m. Mass for the repose of the soul of Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth. And then again in a more formal setting on Sunday at the 10:30 Mass, celebrated by the Abbot himself and with the Ealing Abbey Choir, a full Requiem Mass, for the repose of her soul. We give thanks for her witness, her great sense of duty and service, and in terms of the Christian faith that she led, and all denominations benefited from that witness that she gave. And we gave thanks for the relationships and the bonds that she developed through her long reign with the Catholic community, both in the United Kingdom of Northern Ireland and also with the Republic of Ireland as well. And we pledge our allegiance to King Charles and to support him and ask God to guide him and give him the strength in the role that he takes on, in the very ever-changing role, but with the attributes of the Queen Elizabeth that she gave in service and duty, and her commitment to Christian faith were ever needed now and always. So God save the King.
Thank you. Dr. Crane, please.
Thank you for inviting me here this evening. I'm Janet Burden. I'm the Rabbi Emerita of the Ealing Liberal Synagogue. The Archbishop of Canterbury commented yesterday at the Queen's funeral that people of loving service are rare in any walk of life. Leaders of loving service are still rarer. I will admit that no one I know, any of you I dare say, could come near Her late Majesty in terms of the length, breadth, and depth of her service to this country and to the Commonwealth. Given the 70 years of her long reign, how could it be otherwise? She was magnificent. But does that mean that leaders of loving service are so very rare? That is not my experience. In circles both religious and secular, I frequently come across people who serve their communities with great dedication to the best of their ability, often under very difficult circumstances. One big difference, however, is that those people often do not get the support, financial or practical, to do the job that they would like to do. The Queen was blessed indeed not to have this problem. I have recently had a taste of the kind of work you local councillors undertake on behalf of your constituents. The task seems endless, the factors beyond your control multiple, the resources severely limited. I thank in particular Councillors Tariq Mahmood and Ben Wesson, also James Murray, as well as the Ealing Housing team, especially Julie Bukhari. You are all appreciated and the pressures upon you acknowledged, even as we do all of the remembrances and are grateful for what has been done for us. I thank you all for continuing to do your best in what must be one of the most challenging times for local government in my lifetime. May you all strengthen and support each other to serve King Charles through what you do for the people of Ealing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe go on first. My apology. Rabbi Rubens.
My name is Abdul Karim Muhammad Khalil. I am from West London Islamic Center. Thank you for inviting me to share this somber occasion with you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I begin by saying in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. We gather to remember Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II and to mark the accession of His Majesty the King Charles III. Within the Islamic tradition, when hearing of someone's passing, it is customary to recite Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. From God we come and to God we return. It acts as a reminder that this life is transitory. The Quran reminds us every soul must taste of death. When asked who is the best from among the believers, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, answered, the best of them in character. Character is what a person is known by and inevitably remembered by. In another tradition, the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, you are God's witnesses on earth. The outpouring of emotion and grief at the Majesty's, the Queen's passing is not something that can be orchestrated, and seldom is it repeated over the course of history. It was her character that shone brighter than her crown. Her Majesty was the first monarch to engage with the newly established Muslim community in Britain. Though the first British mosque was seen in the Victorian era, the late Queen was the first monarch to visit a UK mosque during her Jubilee celebration in 2002. I have not had the honor and the pleasure of meeting the late Queen, unfortunately, but I had the pleasure of hosting her son, then Prince of Wales, now the King, when he inaugurated a new Muslim center in Kensington in 2011. I also had the pleasure of hosting her grandsons, William and Harry, who visited the same center in the aftermath of the tragic Grenfell fire. In both occasions, I was impressed by the royals' capacity to listen. But that should not be surprising, as they must have inherited that character from a great mother and a grandmother. Let us give thanks to Her Majesty's service and exemplary character, and pray that God aid and strengthen King Charles III with wisdom and fortitude. And let's always remember, from God we come, and to God we return. Thank you.
Thank you. Miss Amina Adam, please.
Hello, my name is Amina Adam. I'm a barrister and part of the British Muslim community in Ealing. Thank you for inviting me today to pay tribute to Her Majesty. Yesterday, we saw the royal family, the nation, and the world come together to pay their final respect to the Queen. People from all walks of life, faith, and different backgrounds, unified by collective communal loss. This was fitting for a Queen who was an inspiring role model, who throughout her long life embodied the principle of community, family, and faith, the same principles which are embodied in our own Islamic way of life. The Queen showed us that women should not limit themselves to roles traditionally defined by gender and social norms. She notably rose to the demands of royal duty and public service, but also to the demands of being a wife and mother. This was reminiscent of the first female leader in Islam, Hazrat Khadija, the wife of the Prophet Muhammad, who was also a successful and prominent businesswoman and his employer before his marriage. As Great Britain became a more multicultural and multi-faith nation, she encouraged diversity and inclusiveness. She will be remembered for being the first British monarch to visit a UK mosque during her Golden Jubilee in 2002, showing her solidarity to the Muslim community during a difficult and troubled time. She has recognised and honoured the contributions made by British Muslim, male and female, and other minority communities. Her Majesty often spoke about her own faith and how it helped her through difficult times, and she promoted interfaith dialogue through the common shared belief that faith had the power to heal and unite communities. Her Majesty repeatedly called upon all of us to take communal and family responsibility, to look after the old and guide the young in an ever-changing and developing world. We will always have a deep gratitude for all the things Her Majesty has done for our country, our people, and our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I call on Sandia Burkham, representing young people of the borough, to speak for 2 minutes, please.
Hi, I'm Sadia. Her Majesty the Queen has passed away, a heartbreaking and sad felt moment we all share. Let us not just mourn in despair, but joy that she lived her life to the fullest, a life where she upheld her promises. The Queen had once said, "I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, I shall be devoted to your service and the service of our great imperial family." This was a woman who had demonstrated what it means to be loyal, what it means to be dutiful, and what it means to persevere and carry on, despite all hardships. Whether Her Majesty had realized, I have learned valuable lessons. In times where patriarchy and misogyny exist, here was a woman born into a male-dominated world and was appointed head of state as a young woman and succeeded without fail. The Queen's commitments and dedication to her job paved the way for other women to dedicate themselves fully to their careers unapologetically. She has set an example to all the other women and the leaders. She exemplified integrity, dignity, and grace in leadership. For generations to come, she has made history for women who are leaders and aspiring female leaders. Let us not forget, she was a mother, a grandmother, a wife, and she did it all. She has shown women can do it all. We can all do it as a nation. United in our loss, we give thanks for the we give thanks for a life exceptionally served to this country. My thoughts are with the royal family, so thank you all.
Thank you very much. Next is I call upon the following councillors to speak 2 minutes. Please keep in mind, 2 minutes only. I want to disturb the middle of your speech, please. First. Claire, please.
Madam Mayor, it's my first time speaking with you in the chair. What an honour. And I'm also very honoured to pay tribute to Queen Elizabeth II here tonight. There are many angles that will be covered on the impact she had on the world around us. And if I might, Madam Mayor, I want to recognise her role in promoting reconciliation in British-Irish relations. The Queen's trip to Ireland in 2011 is considered a watershed moment. It was described in the Times as one of the most important visits she has made in all of her long reign. I was studying in London at the time and scrapped my plans to write my dissertation on plastic bag use, an important topic for another day, to focus instead on this historic trip. I interviewed lots of people, and a decade on, I can still hear their words echo. One woman told me she was going out for the groceries, but thought, I'll wait to see her land. And 3 days later, she had watched it all. She said, as I watched her get off the plane in her beautiful green dress and a big smile, I thought, here is someone coming to do the right thing. And she did the right thing. Another said, seeing Britain's national granny and Ireland's national mammy get along so well seemed the most natural scene, but it had in fact opened up a new era. On the trip, the Queen gave a historic speech at Dublin Castle. She began with a Uachtaráin agus a Cairde, meaning president and friends, 5 words of Irish that took the nation's breath away. She went on to recognise the everyday ties that bind us, something I know that many across North Hanwell and the entire borough will understand. She said, many British families have members who live in this country, as many Irish families have close relatives in Britain. These families share the 2 islands. They have visited and come home to each other over the years. They are the ordinary people who yearned for the peace and understanding we now have between our 2 nations and between the communities within them. A reminder that we have much to do together to build a future for all our grandchildren, the kind that our grandparents could only dream of. It is an honour to pay tribute to Queen Elizabeth II here tonight, Madam Mayor, and I want to join members across this chamber in wishing King Charles III well as a new era begins. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Councillor Munir Ahmed, please.
Madam Mayor, it's a huge privilege to pay tribute to Queen Elizabeth II. I stand here on behalf of people of Perivale, my residents, who came out in thousands and thousands to show their respect and love when Her Majesty's coffin passed through Perivale. And it was shown that the service and duty was recognized by the residents of Ealing and Perivale. I, Madam Mayor, had the honor of meeting the Queen when I visited Buckingham Palace at a garden party, and it was a remarkable experience. And I couldn't believe I was meeting a human being who had a service and duty of 70 years. Madam Mayor, I also take this opportunity at this moment to send my condolences to the royal family, and also send my best wishes to King Charles III and William, Prince of Wales, on his new role. And I hope that they will follow the legacy that Queen Elizabeth II has left, and not only for us as a public servant, it is for the generations to come that we have a lot to learn, and we can inspire ourselves and the generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You just mentioned about the garden party. I met her, the Queen's garden party. Really, she's very humble. Thank you. Next is Councillor Cam Nagpal.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Throughout her life, Queen Elizabeth II was a shining force that brought all of us together. as the winds of change swirled around her, decade after decade. She offered continuity and a calm leadership that demonstrated that there need not be any conflict between the old ways of doing things and the bright new way that was coming into view. Her reign of pageantry and parachute jumps is what made her not just a modern monarch, but a great unifier. Someone who reminded us that we all have far more in common than that which divides us. Remaining above the clashes of politics, she stood not for what the nation fought over, but what it agreed upon, a symbol of the best of us. I have always taken great inspiration from Her Majesty. She was a woman who found herself in a position of leadership at a young age and threw herself into public service, becoming the most admired of global leaders. She did this whilst also being a mother to her 4 young children. I'm in awe of the way she took on this unimaginable responsibility. She was an inspiration, and the outpouring of condolences from across the world is a testament to that. She leaves behind a truly extraordinary legacy that will remain in our hearts and communities for generations to come. A legacy of selflessness, a legacy of unity, a legacy that crystallizes the virtues of utter commitment to public service and duty. We join together today not just to say goodbye to our Queen, but to wish King Charles III a long, happy and successful reign. Because as one era ends, so another begins. King Charles III has learnt from the very best and will do us proud as sovereign. God save the King.
Thank you, Karen. Next is Councillor Tariq Mahmood, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for giving me opportunity to sharing my memory and my good moments with the Queen as well. It is remarkable testimony for Her Majesty life, though so many of us feel a personal connection to her without having had an honor or indeed a great pleasure to meeting her in person. For those of us who have had privilege, the experience is one never to be forgotten. In case, I'll tell you my personal story. In case of my wife, Bushra, and I were invited to one of the royal garden party, Madam Mayor, and we were warned formally before Her Majesty made her entrance that she could not speak to everyone present, and those to whom she did speak would have a very limited time in which they enjoy her company. Many people present tonight will have had the same experience, but not many will have experienced what followed on that June afternoon 7 years ago. Her Majesty came over to my wife and I, and we spoke for 10 minutes. I must confess of being so nervous that when she asked where I was from, and I said, Ealing. And I asked, does Your Majesty know where the Ealing is? The Queen gave a patient smile and assured us that she did indeed know Ealing very well. The conversation flowed on. My abiding memory is one of the grace and charm that she showed to all those present, and how genuinely interested she was in all of us. Madam Mayor, like the rest of the council, I wish long life and happiness to King Charles. But like all of us, I know the Queen Elizabeth II was unique. And that is, this nation has lost not just a monarch, but a mother to us all. Thank you.
Thank you, Tariq. Thank you very much. Next is Councillor Jaswir Anand, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Her late Majesty, the Queen, was the greatest of unifiers in a time of too much division. Madam Mayor, we felt the silence on our streets during the funeral. We saw the roadside crowds when a coffin passed through our borough a week ago today. And in more joyful times, we witnessed the crowds for the Platinum Jubilee celebrations across Ealing. Powerful signs of how people of our borough took to their hearts. Madam Mayor, she inspired a deep respect that cuts across ages, backgrounds, and beliefs. For many Ealing residents whose families arrived in Britain during her long reign, she inspired no less love and dedication than among those we can trace their family tree here back across many other monarchs. Madam Mayor, like many of us, I struggled to know how to reassure loved ones during the terrible days of lockdown. Yet the Queen, as so often, instinctively grasped with what her people were feeling. Those simple words, Madam Mayor, "We will meet again, we will be together again," were a well of comfort for so many. The pandemic drew on our nation's reserves of voluntary and neighbourly spirit. Madam Mayor, the Queen, as patron of more than 600 charities, exemplified that. Selflessness, charity, and duty. Those were her watchwords and what her memory should inspire us in all. Madam Mayor, we mourn with her family. We have lost a devoted mother, grandmother, and a great-grandmother. And we stand with the many millions who sharply feel the loss. Rest in peace, Your Majesty, and God save the King.
Thank you, Jaswir. Next is Councillor Steele, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When the late Queen was born in 1926, we often forget it was unlikely she would ever succeed to the throne. But for the abdication of her uncle, Edward VIII, her father would not have become king, and then with no male heir, she succeeded her father. How fortunate the country was. The next 70 years have seen much change. During that time, Elizabeth II was a constant, and most of us never knew or could remember anything different. Her death at the age of 96 has still come as a shock for many people. Beyond the pomp and ceremony of the last 11 days, culminating in the extraordinary images of yesterday, there has been much discussion about the enigmatic figure who was our Queen, and in her time, the Queen and head of state of 32 sovereign states. The various stories that we have heard since her death provide us with a picture of a monarch who was actually a shy person, but who was aware of her own aura as Queen and the impact that had on the people she met. Councillor Mahmood. Her ability to make people feel at ease was legendary, and there have been many touching stories of how intuitive she was. Was she the most famous person on the planet? I do not know, but she herself probably met most of the most famous people on the planet. And by all accounts, they were keen to meet her. I particularly enjoyed comments from an ex-Foreign Office minister who observed that visiting politicians would meet our Foreign Secretary and Prime Minister, but they all really wanted to meet the Queen, the ultimate invitation. She was the embodiment of what we now refer to as soft power. Her commitment to her role was profound, probably linked to her strong religious faith. This belief in her duty over a span of 70 years will be hard to match and impossible to replicate. Her death signals the end of our post-war age and possibly heralds a period of change for our new king and maybe ourselves. Reunited with her husband, the Duke of Edinburgh, may she rest in peace.
Thank you very much. Next is Seema Kumar, remote.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to everyone who's helped make it possible for me to join online and give my few words. Our thoughts and condolences to the family of Her Majesty at this very difficult time. Something woke me in the early hours of Thursday, the 8th of September, only to learn of the Queen's passing. This is one of the saddest moments in my life since the loss of my own dearest mother, who also loved the Queen so much. One of my fondest memories was playing the part of the Queen in a school play in Kenya, wearing a beautifully handmade crown and my mum's wedding stole. I never imagined that many years later, I would have the honor of being presented to Her Majesty when I chaired her Silver Jubilee Fair at the Commonwealth Institute. An unforgettable experience, a privilege, a memory very much cherished, and a smile never forgotten. We will remember this much loved, respected, and above all, unique Queen for over 70 years of utterly dedicated, selfless, unifying, exemplary service to her country, to her family as a public figure, and as a private individual. We thank you. Rest in eternal peace, Your Majesty. Now it's time to support our new King, Charles III, to carry on the Queen's long and faithful service. He's her son. He knows how to do it, and I'm sure he will. God save the King.
Thank you. Councillor Raza.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is with greatest sorrow and sadness that we mourn the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. She ascended the throne as a young woman surrounded by men to advise her in a world where a women's place was anywhere but in leadership. Us women here in public life owe so much to women like her, who paved the way for us to be where we are. Throughout the second Elizabethan era, there has been steady progress in the gender equity. However, we have much to do to continue her legacy. After a long life of faith, duty, and service, a great light has gone out. Throughout her reign of the 7 decades of extraordinary change and challenge, Her Majesty was the epitome of duty, stability, wisdom, and grace. Her Majesty loved the Commonwealth, and the Commonwealth loved her back. My mother remembers vividly Her Majesty's visit to Pakistan, and the excitement of the royal visit at her school is something that school children, like my mum, still have never forgotten. The genuine affection that we've seen in our own diverse community over these past 10 days, where many of us have attended very heartfelt memorial services in our communities and felt that love for ourselves. In Her Majesty's final Commonwealth Day message, she described our family of nations as a modern, vibrant, and connected Commonwealth that combines a wealth of history and tradition with the great social, cultural, and technological advances of our time. The growth and the vibrancy of our modern Commonwealth is a credit to her and a testament to her dedication, her wisdom, and her leadership. Her long years of partnership with generations of world leaders and their people, particularly the young, gave her this extraordinary insight, which brought ever more life and meaning to her service. I express our profound sadness at her passing and our admiration for all that she was, and our enduring gratitude for all that she gave us. Her life was one of dedicated service, which will echo through the ages, and we will forever be grateful.
Thank you very much. Next is Councillor Dan Crawford, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor, Mr. Deputy Lieutenant. It's with a profound sense of sadness that we pay tribute to a peerless public servant this evening. I'm glad that Her Majesty was able to witness the outpouring of joy that many colleagues have referred to earlier this year with the Platinum Jubilee. It showed how much she was loved within Ealing and throughout the country, and indeed, as colleagues have said, throughout the Commonwealth and the world. I wasn't, unlike Councillor Mahmood and many other colleagues, fortunate enough to meet Her Majesty. So I thought I'd share some words from constituents who did. Dolores Cunningham is a constituent of mine, originally from Barbados. She is 101 years of age. She shared with me earlier this year the letter that she received from Her Majesty on turning 100. And she was also fortunate enough to meet the Queen many years ago at Buckingham Palace. She said she spoke to me with great enthusiasm, inspired me and everyone else present. And that is the message we hear from so many people who were fortunate enough to meet the late Queen Elizabeth. Only last weekend, another one of my constituents, Mr. Michael Fisher, was telling myself and Councillor Harley at our first surgery about how the excitement of meeting the Queen was palpable. She took the time to learn all about our own lives. She was interested in them and she wanted to know what we were doing. Many colleagues have expressed, of course, not just a regret at the passing and great sense of loss that we all feel with the loss of Queen Elizabeth, but also our sympathy and our support to King Charles as he begins this work that is so important. Many commentators have speculated what kind of monarch or sovereign he will be. That will be for him to decide. But I have great confidence in King Charles, and I'll tell you why. He met and worked with another much missed son of Acton, Jamal Edwards, in his role as patron of the Prince's Trust. Jamal was a constituent of mine, and on one train journey back from Paddington to Acton Main Line, he was buzzing, as he put it, having met Prince Charles, as he was then, for the first time. He said that for him, a proud black young man, he embodied a sense of Britishness. And I know that the King will continue that very important work. God save the King.
Thank you, Dan. Councillor Marion, please.
Madam Mayor, I did not have the good fortune of meeting our late Queen. However, I was privileged to attend a number of celebrations in my ward of Northolt Mandeville for the Jubilee. One thing that really struck me during the 10 days of mourning was seeing a photograph I'd never seen before. It was from 1961, and it was of Queen Elizabeth II dancing with President Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana. It truly warmed my heart to see the smiles of both of them. And why it was so striking was that it happened when segregation was still in force in the United States of America. Our Queen could unite the world, and she set the finest example of respecting others. I am glad that she expressed her love for her granddaughter-in-law when Meghan Markle experienced vicious racism. And sadly, even the bereavement has done nothing to silence the haters of the Duchess of Sussex. Her Majesty also taught us lessons in kindness, contrition, and forgiveness, such important qualities that we often fail on in our political lives. What happened in Northern Ireland during her reign clearly brought pain to the Queen, and it even became a personal matter as her own family was affected. Nonetheless, Queen Elizabeth II visited Northern Ireland and she shook hands with Martin McGuinness, and she gave the closest thing to an apology to Ireland for Britain's actions. As for the future, I learned how our new Queen Consort worked hard for charity addressing osteoporosis. I know she has once highlighted, I know she has since highlighted the issues of domestic violence and even strangulation, and has been a real champion for women. And I've noted how King Charles has had the courage to speak up about the environment long before it was fashionable. His public service makes him more popular than he gets credit. Madam Mayor, with King Charles III and Queen Consort Camilla, I believe the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth is in safe hands. God save the King.
Thank you very much. Next, Councillor Ranjit, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, Harbhajan and I, we went to the Westminster Hall to pay our respects while the Queen lay in state. And after that, we wandered around Westminster Bridge, Parliament Square, saw the crowds, people talking, and huge pomp and pageantry around. And we realized that how popular she was. She had come to the throne with a very conflicted legacy of the empire. And yet in her 70 years, she transformed herself into a huge moral force on the global scale. Her longevity helped because she's been there for the most part of her lives. She was on the throne when I came to this country, when my children were born, when my grandchildren were born. And in an age of fractiousness and hatred and division, she represented some sort of permanence of values, duty, love for the neighbor, simple values. And I think that comforted the nation, provided a steady hand, and gave that sense of stability to the people. And I think it's because of those qualities that she became not only the favorite mother of the nation, favorite grandmother of the nation, but also a moral force and a global matriarch. And I think we should take pride from her achievements. I too have been privileged, Madam Mayor, for meeting her actually on half a dozen occasions. My wife, my children, we have all met her. And I will always treasure that final picture of the Queen, 96-year-old woman, frail and leaning on a stick, still doing her duty, appointing her prime minister. That was our late Queen. And I think we pray for the peace of her soul and God save the King. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is a Councillor Kim Nagba. There she is.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II has always been a personal hero to me. And the reason is one that I'm sure will resonate with many in this room. To me and many others across the country, she was a hero. As a young girl, I always thought of Her Majesty as a larger-than-life, elegant monarch who could save the world with the wave of her hand. The belief was inspired by one of my favorite books growing up, The BFG by Roald Dahl, where Sophie and the big friendly giant approached the Queen of England to help save England's children from flesh-eating giants, a task that was insurmountable for all but the Queen. I saw her then as I see her now, a superhero. As an adult woman today, my superheroes are strong, inspirational women who pave the way for other women to make their mark in the world. Who better to look up to as an example of strength and steadfastness than Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth? She has left a huge hole in the hearts of many. Though the last 12 days have been difficult for us as a nation, it is wonderful to see that even in death, she has united this country once again. We have come together to help each other through the grief that we are all suffering. She has touched the lives of many, both here and across the world, and her absence will be felt for years to come. To help us all through this difficult time, I offer some words of comfort, quoting Her late Majesty. Never give up, never despair. When life seems hard, the courageous do not lie down and accept defeat. Instead, they are all the more determined to struggle for a better future. But it is often the small steps, not the giant leaps, that bring about the most lasting change. I would like to wish His Majesty King Charles III our deepest and sincerest condolences. May the country's solidarity at the passing of Her Majesty offer him some comfort at this difficult time. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. I know your feeling. I know. And next is Councillor Basuti, please, if it's possible. He's here. He's on the line. No? And next is Councillor Young, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know of two occasions when Her Majesty the Queen paid royal visits to Ealing. One was the opening of the Ealing Town Centre. The other was a visit to St David's Home, a nursing home then for disabled ex-servicemen in Ealing. I was proud to be present on both occasions and to say a few words on one of them, not the 10 minutes that Councillor Mahmood managed, just a few words, that's all. And I can remember thinking at the time, for those of us who were in attendance with Her Majesty, That was a very special day. Her presence made it a day that we would remember for the rest of our lives. But for Her Majesty, it was a job of work, and a hard job of work. At the time, she was undertaking something like 600 such engagements a year. That was a tremendous effort. One other time I was at an occasion with Her Majesty was a reception given to mark the 150th anniversary of the veterinary profession. And as the royal party approached the assembled veterinary surgeons, they were preceded by a pack of royal corgis who rushed into the room, took one sniff and decided a room full of veterinary surgeons was not the place for a sensible dog to be. So they immediately turned tail and ran as fast as they could away from the room, causing a degree of royal consternation. And the Royal Equerry was sent to see that they were all right. But that was Her Majesty through and through, always worried about others, whether it be the royal corgis or her subjects. She gave her all for her subjects. Queen Elizabeth II, Queen Elizabeth the Dutiful. From the bottom of our hearts, we thank you for your long and glorious reign.
Thank you. Next is Constance Berlin. Is she there? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In my maiden speech, I mentioned my pride in my Caribbean roots, as well as my pride in being British. The glue, the commonality with my beloved countries is the Commonwealth. The Queen and the royal family has played a significant part in our history. Whilst many have anguish over the history, in most part, Caribbeans, in particular Grenadians, where we share the same head of state, are very patriotic and firm loyalists. Many Caribbeans are so grateful of the opportunities of being in the Commonwealth afforded them and their children. Madam Mayor, I would like to give my heartfelt thanks to the late Queen Elizabeth for all the Caribbeans and their descendants in the borough that held her in high esteem. Most Caribbean families in Ealing, like me, have fond memories of going to their grandparents and almost feeling that there's more pictures of the royal family on the walls than their own. Watching the Trooping of the Colour, the annual Christmas address was a family event. Whilst many families face inequalities, the royal family had a convening power, as we all indeed are our subjects, made us all equal. Similarly, it reminds me of faith. It's unifying and joyous and brings hope. Queen Elizabeth was a woman of faith. She was guided by her faith. She was a servant of God and she served God well. Lastly, Madam Mayor, I would like to share with you, when I was younger, I was a Girl Guide. As a Girl Guide, you had to take an oath to serve the Queen and to serve your local community. The Queen served until the very end, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and the other realms and territories, as well as the head of the Commonwealth. I would like to end with our Brownie closing song. O Lord our God, thou children call, grant us thy peace, and bless us all good night. Good night, Queen Elizabeth, and may God save our King.
Thank you very much. Next is Councillor Cornwall Baines, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to start off with a well-known Punjabi quote, Mama Tandiyan Shava, the meaning, a mother will always provide you with the comfort of cool shade in those worrisome times and need in life. How fitting I thought this was on hearing this news of the sad news that our Queen Mother had sadly passed away. I felt that the earth had not only lost another great soul, but a great leader, an inspiring woman. The Queen's reign of 70 years is the longest of any British monarch and the longest recorded of any female head of state in history. Her reign changed the way women were seen. She knew her role. She was loyal and consistent, which was a major historical contribution to establishing the monarchy. She appointed the 15th Prime Minister just 2 days prior to her passing. Such selfless devotion. The Queen was a constitutional monarch, loyal to her values, her religion, her service, and her skills of reconciliation made her remarkable. This continuity is much needed in our nation. The Queen spent her whole life in the service of others, and she did so selflessly. When her own domestic politics were rife, she provided a band-aid to keep things going. She certainly lived by the motto of keep calm and carry on. I feel privileged to have grown up in a time of our Queen's reign. I feel lucky to have had the opportunity of celebrating the Gold and Platinum Jubilees. She was more than a monarch and she defined an era. The nation has had the privilege of hearing and seeing the Queen deliver 69 Christmas Day messages. Christmas Day will not be the same without the Queen summing up the year. 2 decades ago, the Queen said, "Grief is a price we pay for love." Over the last 10 days, the nation has shown just how much she was and is loved. There is only death if one forgets. Let us not forget the Queen, but keep her memory alive by integrating her values of dignity, duty, and dedication. That way, she will reign over us forevermore. Thank you, Your Majesty. God bless the Queen and God save the King.
Thank you. Next is Councillor Ben, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As we've heard, the loss of the Queen continues to be felt not just here in the UK, but across oceans and continents. Her Majesty was recognised and admired globally. She was a constant source and inspiration to people, including me. As a young boy, I pledged allegiance to the Queen as part of my Cub Scout promise. It's a simple but powerful commitment to God and the Queen that Scouts honour I've tried to live my life by ever since. The monarchy is about more than preserving traditions. It's about inspiring people to do better and to be better. It's fitting that Her Majesty served as patron of the Scouts throughout her reign, inspiring hundreds of thousands of young people like me to make a difference. Like other councillors, I had the privilege to meet Her Majesty at a royal garden party in Buckingham Palace. My mum accompanied me to the event, which was arranged for those working in public service. Unfortunately, whilst at the palace, I didn't have an opportunity to sample any of the famed afternoon tea, as my mother, a keen gardener, took it upon herself to head off in the other direction as tea was served. This is to see if she could sneak rose petals to press or a cutting she could cultivate at home as a lasting memory of the visit. And I can report that despite the palace's enhanced security measures, my mother's mission was quite the success. Sadly, I left the palace that day with a rumbling tummy, but flowers as proof. The Queen's garden parties opened up the monarchy to people across the country. They helped to build bonds between everyday people and the royal family. We should never forget Queen Elizabeth's legacy as we enter a new era and look forward to King Charles's reign with a sense of hope and optimism for the future. The warmth and kindness she displayed won people's trust. She'll be remembered fondly as the Queen of our hearts. May she rest in peace. And as we move beyond the second Elizabethan era and offer our support to King Charles III, the people of Ealing join with others across the country by saying the words, "God save the King."
Thank you. Next is Councillor Stedford, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. It is inarguable, I think, that the constitutional monarchy system is the best form of government, but it must be admitted that means that we do get good and bad monarchs. And we have been very fortunate in Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth of having a great monarch. So over the last week, we've all been trying to express the inexpressible, to sum up our feelings. And we've heard them here tonight, her steadfastness, her sense of duty, her sang-froid in the face of trials and tribulations, love of her country. But talking to the pupils of a local school on Friday, they asked me about something that perhaps isn't expressed as much, and that was her deep Christian faith. Just before she was crowned at her coronation, she said, "I want to ask you all, whatever your religion may be, to pray for me on that day, to pray that God may give me wisdom and strength to carry out the solemn promises I shall be making, and that I may faithfully serve him and you all the days of my life." And she certainly did that. But she took this identity just as seriously, not just in words, but in actions. And while Christians over her 70-year reign fell away from the church, Her Majesty was a steadfast and weekly attendee at church. And not only was she an attendee, she was an evangelist for the Christian faith. And those people who have mentioned the Christmas address cannot fail to notice the countless occasions when Her Majesty spoke of her faith. They weren't just fine words, though. She embodied the Christian ideal, not exclusively Christian, but certainly fundamentally Christian ideals of forgiveness. And we have heard already spoken of this evening when she shook the hand of Martin McGuinness, a man who directly or indirectly was responsible for the death of a family member. That Christian forgiveness shone through. And then perhaps even on a more minor point, when we had that interview with Oprah from the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, and there was all the angst around that, her simple response was, Harry, Meghan and Archie will always be my much loved family members. Forgiveness rather than retribution. So as I stood before the catafalque on Thursday morning, I was happy to honor her as the longest serving British monarch, an anchor for this country in troubled times, but also and especially as evangelist of the Christian faith. And I want to remember her in that way. Obviously, we will pay our due respects to His Majesty when we reach the coronation. But for now, all I want to end with is God save the King.
Thank you very much. Councillor County, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With the fading sounds of the lone piper at St. George's Chapel yesterday, the great second Elizabethan age came to an end. The country on that February morning in 1952 is almost unrecognisable today. Through its transformation and challenge, through its progress and difficult times, there's always been a constant reassuring presence, that of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. I don't think in recent times that was ever more evident than during the early days of the COVID pandemic, during those uncertain days, when we were isolated from our family and friends, and she spoke on that broadcast, and those words almost reached through our television sets when she said that we would meet again. I don't think there's anyone else who could have brought that message in such a reassuring way. The affection demonstrated over the last few days is a testament to her. It is not just because of her constant presence over the last 70 years, but also because of her enduring service to this great country and to the Commonwealth that we all belong. A pledge of service that she made almost 3/4 of a century ago was kept to her final days. For us as councillors, as we sit here and we look to serve our own community here in Ealing, it's an inspiration to look at her and how she conducted public service. Whether it was at times of remembrance or at joyful occasions such as the Platinum Jubilee or a great entrance to the Olympic Games in 2012, Her Majesty had an ability to bring a nation together. For a nation that's often painted as divided, she had the power to unite us all. Because of her ability to unite, her unwavering service, or her reassuring continuity, she will be missed. And as dawn breaks on a new era, and we look forward, we say, God save the King.
Thank you very much. The last one is Karam Mohan is on the line.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Her Majesty the Queen will be remembered for being a decent, modest, above politics and graceful monarch. She was respected not only just in the UK, she was popular all over the world. She had a wonderful sense of humor, and she reached hearts of many people. Like many others, I was particularly touched and encouraged by her message during the height of COVID when she said, "We will meet again," at a time when there was an atmosphere of desperation and hopelessness. She lifted the spirits of the nation and spread the feelings of hope and positivity. I share grief of our nation. May she rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mom. Now, Councillor Peter Mason will be sum up for 4 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a few short weeks ago, the nation gathered in streets and as communities in jubilation of 70 years of dedicated service of Her Majesty's service to us. Perfect strangers brought together then in joy are reunited now in sadness. Both emotions expressed with such honesty and purpose here this evening by faith leaders, young people, and councillors, of Her Majesty's dignity, of grace, of her character, her service, her duty, her steadfastness, her loyalty, and her faith. In giving thanks to all of us at the Platinum Jubilee, she said, "Whilst I may not have attended every event in person, my heart has been with you all. I've been inspired by your kindness, your joy and kinship that has been so evident in recent days, and I hope this renewed sense of togetherness will be felt for many years to come. Today we give thanks to her. Her heart was with us, and ours with her. May God keep Her late Majesty's soul in peace. May He comfort her family amongst the mourners. And as we affirm our faithfulness and true allegiance to His Majesty, may God too keep and comfort our sovereign Lord, King Charles III.
Thank you very much. Now I'll give the time for DL to speak for 2 minutes, please.
As in her life, so in her passing has Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth united her family, her people, and her kingdom. Your heartfelt tributes in this chamber tonight, coming from every party, creed, race, and tradition in her realms, are the proof of that. His Majesty the King has been moved beyond measure by the words of condolence, affection, and support shown to him and to his family as they carry on the public service of the Crown, whilst yet their grief is raw and their hearts are pained. Her late Majesty the Queen dedicated her whole life to our service, and she fulfilled that vow until the very last moment. Faithfulness was the hallmark of her reign. May it be the inspiration of our work in the years to come. At the end of a lifetime of dutiful service as a constitutional monarch, there is only one last thing Her Majesty could have wished, and it falls to us to express it for her now in words that have echoed down the centuries. God save the King.
Thank you very much, Richard. I will now take the vote on the motion. Those in favor? You want to count? Those against? No. Abstentions? No. So the motion is therefore carried. At the end, I would like to thank all members and the guests are coming to this extraordinary council meeting and for participating in the spirit of unity and particularly distinguishes your borough. God save the King. The next meeting will take place on 1st November 22. The meeting is now closed. Please stay here like that.